Cigar Snapshot, Episode 6. And welcome back to another episode of the Cigar Snapshot podcast. A different cigar podcast with episodes made to fit into your busy schedule. Remember, you can find us online at www.cigarsnapshot.com. Bill Bear is here once again to share my thoughts with you about a cigar. And today I decided to feature a snapshot of the Joya de Nicaragua Cabinetta No. 7. Now, this episode of the Cigar Snapshot podcast is brought to you by JPM Design. Located in Lodi, California, Mary is an interior designer with impeccable taste and an impressive portfolio. Not only does she do personal design consulting and event styling in Northern California, but she also does e-design consulting for anyone, anywhere in the world. How convenient would it be for you to be able to take care of all of your design needs online and never have to leave your home? You owe it to yourself to check out JPM Design on the web at jpmdesign.blogspot.com. Email Mary about your project, and be sure to let her know you heard about JPM Design on Cigar Snapshot. Last episode, which was episode number 5, I issued a $20 cigar challenge, where I said you have $20 to spend on your very last cigar, and I asked what would you pick. I had a few responses. A couple of people said that they would have to think about it, and Paul from Lodi, California, managed to reduce his decision to something from the Tatuaje or Ilusione lines, and then we had the cheater. John from Wisconsin said that he would convince someone to take a few bucks off of a Padron 80th. A great cigar for sure, but I'm afraid it's just a couple of bucks over the limit. And then back in episode 3, I mentioned the cigar mishap I had with the cigar and leather case going through the washer and dryer. I still have yet to hear from any of you about any unfortunate incidents you have had with cigars. Please let me know so that I can sleep at night knowing that I'm not the only one that this kind of thing happens to. Remember, everyone, that I do want to hear from you. You can get online at www.cigarsnapshot.com and leave us a comment. You can send email and audio feedback files to feedback@cigarsnapshot.com. You can hit us up on Facebook at www.facebook.com/cigarsnapshot. You can check us out on Twitter @cigarsnapshot or @maytagman1. Also, please subscribe and rate us on iTunes. Rating us and giving us comments on iTunes will really help our exposure. And don't forget our voicemail feedback line at 209-432-3535. And now, on to the snapshot. The cigar I picked out today was a Joya de Nicaragua Cabinetta No. 7. The size is 6 inches by 50 ring gauge. The wrapper is actually a two-tone wrapper. It has a Nicaraguan sun-grown Criollo and an Ecuadorian shade-grown wrapper. Both the binder and filler are from Nicaragua. Now, the Joya de Nicaragua Cigar Company has been in Estelí, Nicaragua since 1968. The company is owned by Dr. Alejandro Martinez Cuenca and is imported and distributed exclusively in the United States by Drew Estate. Prior to the release of the Cabinetta line, Joya de Nicaragua was probably best known for their Antaño cigars, which are very full-bodied and flavored. Check out their website for more information, www.joyadenicaragua.com.ni, and I'll have that link in the show notes too. Now, these cigars were actually sent out for the annual HERF hosted by Doc of the Stogie Fresh 5 podcast. I work with Doc each year to secure sponsorships for his HERF, and I'm pleased to report that Jonathan Drew really stepped up and supported the event. In the future, I will be smoking other cigars that were donated to Doc's 5th annual Central Coast HERF, and we'll be sure to identify them as such so that you can show them your support. Now on the pre-light, the striking feature that is immediately visible is that there are two different wrappers. The top quarter or so of the cigar has a dark sun-grown wrapper, and the bottom 3/4 has a lighter Ecuadorian shade-grown wrapper. Both wrappers are beautiful and very smooth to the touch. The sun-grown wrapper has a slight sheen with a barnyard aroma. The shade-grown wrapper has a pleasant light cedary aroma with a touch of dried fruit. The pre-light taste also had that dried fruit-like component with a solid background of hay. Upon lighting, the cigar started off with a very mild and creamy character, with the sun-grown wrapper adding a touch of spiciness to my lips. The spicy tingle reminded me of the general sensation I get if I have something like hot sauce on my lips, albeit this is much milder. This relatively low profile was pretty steady throughout the first half, and the cigar did produce an extraordinary volume of smoke for me. In the second third, the flavor profile became a little bit more focused. While still mild overall, the creamy character of the first third became more buttery, and I got some notes of leather as well. There was still a slight spiciness on my lips and tongue from the wrapper, and the buttery and leather flavors were a bit of a better match to that spiciness, in my opinion, and they all fused together as this second third continued. As I approached the final third, the spiciness that I noted on my lips and tongue became more prevalent. The creamy, buttery character fell into the background, and leathery flavors came to the forefront. In addition, the spice started to build and intensify, though it never got past what I would qualify as a medium-level spiciness. This last third is where the flavors really came together and began to shine. Overall, I think this was a pleasant, mild to medium-bodied smoke, and that the addition of the sun-grown wrapper was a saving grace to this cigar. It gave this cigar the spicy characteristics that set it apart from what could have been a pretty flat flavor profile otherwise. To me, the final third of this cigar is where it really hit its stride. And that's my take on the Joya de Nicaragua Cabinetta No. 7. I want to send my thanks again to Jonathan Drew for supporting Doc's 5th annual Central Coast Turf and sending these cigars out for us to enjoy. A couple of quick items before I turn the microphone off for this episode. First of all, in case you haven't heard, there was a major fire that destroyed 2 Arturo Fuente tobacco warehouses in the Dominican Republic. Carlos Fuente Jr. reported that the loss was significant and included some tobacco from a Connecticut grower that may have been harvested as long ago as 1960. Fuente said that this tobacco was being saved for a special project. Now, based upon what the pricing is on some of their regular production cigars, I hesitate to wonder what the price would have been on these cigars. The most important thing is, though, that nobody was injured in the fire and that everyone's okay. Second thing, at the time of this recording, people on the East Coast are all preparing for the arrival of Hurricane Irene. A lot of my cigar people on Twitter are reporting what's going on and keeping us all updated. I just wanted to send them a shout out and let them know that good vibes are streaming their way from the Cigar Snapshot Headquarters. Please join me in hoping that they're all safe and sound as Irene passes. Just wanted to say thanks again to JPM Design for sponsoring this episode of the Cigar Snapshot podcast. Remember to check them out at jpmdesign.blogspot.com. And I think that'll just about do it for another episode of the Cigar Snapshot podcast. Thanks for listening, and please share your feedback with me via comment, email, or voicemail. And if you've smoked a Joya de Nicaragua Cabinetta of any size, I would love to hear what you thought of it. I'll catch you next time, and remember, cigars attract mooches like moths to a flame, so always have a couple of gimmies on hand. Catch you next time. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Cigar Snapshot podcast. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or compliments, I'd like to hear from you. Leave a comment at cigarsnapshot.com. Send an email to feedback@cigarsnapshot.com. Check us out on facebook.com/cigarsnapshot. Like us and leave a comment. Or call and leave your comment on the Cigar Snapshot voicemail feedback line at 209-432-3535.